wishful thinking for about 36 years in Lehigh. And there was a story that all this loot was buried at the opposite side of the river at the Packard Dip.
Oh.
And that's where the jewelry was. And so people were known to be scouring the side for all this money. I shouldn't say jewelry, this was only money and security.
Wow.
And so the guys got caught by the posse and were sentenced to state pen down in the Eastern State Penitentiary, and they died in prison.
No kidding.
Yes.
So did they find the money?
Well, this is where the story gets good. So what happened then was 1906. At least one of the men was well dressed. Again,
wow.
One of the hotels in Lehigh, and this one was a man's hotel, also near the high rise.
Okay.
And they only know one was well dressed because he was the only one left behind, because he had 3 gunshots right in his chest, close range. And so these men were hawking around and allegedly were seen digging in the vicinity opposite the Packard Dip.
Okay.
And so it would appear that the guy that knew the information wasn't and needed the other 2 men with him. I think the other 2 men offed him and tried to make it look like a suicide. So he was found dead over there with 3 shots to his chest.
Wow.
So that was the easy one, but that one has a lot of intrigue to it to me.
What was the year of that?
So 1870 would have been the bank robbery. 1906 was the recovery of the loot by, I don't know, somebody. The theory was he told someone in prison. Think of Shawshank Redemption. Andy Dufresne. Sticking the loot, or sticking that box of money in the wall there for his buddy to find.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of history. We have a lot of history around here.
Yeah.
I mean, there's it runs pretty deep.
And like I said, there's just we all know Corky Cordilla.
Yeah. I had him as a school teacher.
He told the stories, right? He always had interesting things and always was calling people. Even when he retired, he'd call my dad, he'd call me, a trivia. He'd mail me trivia, in the mail. But his dad was a colorful guy, got in trouble. He's involved with a couple of these cases, actually.
Oh, all right, we'll talk about
but
that.
I don't know, we'll get to those.
We'll get to a couple. It's coming up. Ron Rabenold on board here. And Corky. I remember Corky Cordilla. He would hand out cards asking if you want to be a turtle. Remember that?
Yes. And it had, had ASS on the back.
I had ASS on the back. Listen, we have a lot going on. We're wide open on Facebook Live. Keith, we're also wide open on the Colossal Community Podcast page, right? So
Not yet.
On both of them, all right. So we're wide open all over the place on social media. Check us out, man. Let's do some share and join us. Like I said, on FB Live if you get a chance, right? That's fun, man. I like it.
Good little block.
That's
good little block of a story there.
That's
I don't want to talk
good.
too much all at once.
No, it's good. I like it. I'm gonna have you just move up a little bit though, because
Okay. Yeah, you're having trouble seeing.
I want to just move this again. Sorry, guys. We're all over the place here today.
It feels like I'm on which mic I use.
No, you use that. Yeah, you can use the that one right by you. So interesting stories, but there was a lot of. I remember a bar on First Street that somebody got into a mess with a lady behind the bar, and I think a stabbing took place. I forget what the bar was called, right on First Street, but it was up at, I don't know, towards Jim Thorpe.
The Jamestown Hotel, the one that burned?
No, my grandparents owned that.
Really? At one time?
My grandparents.
So Ornette's had it.
Yeah, my grandparents owned it. Bill Schrader owned it. He was a conductor on a railroad. He bought that for the railroaders, and my grandmother and my mom and her adopted sister Betty Ann, they all worked there as kids, and the railroaders would come and stay there. They're at the Jamestown Hotel. But it was just up from that on not going towards Packerton, but the other way. There was a bar there, and I guess some guy got involved with a lady there at the bar, and I don't know, something happened. She wanted more of him. He was already married, and I don't know what was going on there, and ended up. And she didn't die, but I guess he poked her.
I saw a story in the 1935 chief of police was warning men that were picking up young girls. So I don't know how old the men were, but they were picking up, now this is 35, so booze must have just been legal again. I think booze came legal again 34?
Wow.
No, I don't know. But they were going to bars, and they would pick up these young 14 and 15-year-old girls in the park in Lehigh, drive them to a place, and have drinks with them and bring them back in the middle of the night.
Really?
According to this article. So, and they're just saying, we're busting on people, we're going to catch you. So, like, you know, all those stories when we were growing up of, you know, don't get in cars with strangers and things like that, which is different than today. But could you imagine 35, you having a teenage daughter that was getting picked up by an older man and being brought back home after drinking all night?
Wow.
You know, that's just crazy.
Really?
Yeah.
And these are true stories.
That's one article I read. Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Lehigh.
That is crazy. Insane. There. So I want to get into a couple more. Are you able to talk about these stories that are coming up?
Yeah. Well. We were back on. I didn't.
No, we will be in.
Okay. Yeah, I'll wait.
We'll be on. All right. We'll be on
Yeah.
both. We'll be on.
No,
we're
yeah.
on Facebook Live now. I mean.
I think I'm going to get into the grittiest one, and then see what time we have for the other stuff.
Yeah. All right. Let's do it.
So.
Ronnie Rabenold got the dirt on the area, but you know what? The information is out there, and
Yeah, this is all
you know,
public record stuff.
Exactly. You know, which is crazy. So, you know, with let's go with the Nathan Hutton massacre because
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just bringing this up on my own. Where was it? Because it
Yeah.
seems to be, I don't know. Was
Oh,
it there? Was it over by Weissport? Was it over in the area of the Hufford Mill? Because
No.
some are
Well,
saying
yes and no.
yes and
Yeah.
no.
You know, the fort was right across from Hufford Mill.
Well, you had Fort Allen.
So that was a safe area. The other side is where the Moravians were, 400 acres. And that's all. Like, I've done extensive studies on that because everybody focuses on those victims, and I want to find the survivors of that and see what exists in the family record of those survivors. So I didn't do really well with that, but I was able to piece together how some of them survived that night. We all hear about how they got shot, and this one got scalped, and this one jumped, and different things. But a neat story that I love to tell my students is anybody that loves a pretzel, that we wouldn't have the pretzel, the modern day pretzel factor, if it wouldn't have been for Julius Sturgis, 16-year-old boy jumping out of the attic of the Nathan massacre that night. And he ends up being a Moravian living in Lidditz. And his grandson then starts first Julius Sturgis pretzel factory.
Right.
So that's where the pretzel was invented. So, you know, that we wouldn't have that if he wouldn't have survived the massacre. Another husband and wife were split up that night. Each thought the other was killed. She found a hollow of a tree she hid in overnight. He ran all the way to Bethlehem to get the authorities up here. He ran through the night, down to Bethlehem, and then back.
Wow.
And then the two of them reunited that morning, each thinking the other one was dead. So that's a pretty cool story.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, there's that. So
because I know Kate and I talked, you know, different things. She loves her history. You know, Catherine, and you know, you have that one placard that is over there in Lehighton, I think, in and around Bridge Street. Or
that'd be where their grist mill was. That was the area where they ground their wheat and things. Yeah.
And where's that? At the mill.
Where that sign is.
Oh, where the sign is.
Yeah, where the sign is, and then you know the bottom of the cemetery would have been the top edge of their living part of the settlement.
And is that where? But that's where supposedly it took place.
That would be right now.
That's right there.
Yep, right between 4th and Bridge, 4th and 7th, right now.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Let's go back on the radio side too. I love Ronnie. Like it really is fun. We don't connect often, but it's just neat. And I love the history of our area. I'm all big into our area. We got a great vacation spot. I mean, it's cool, man. Hanging out with Ron Rabenold on Facebook Live too. Sometimes the realness happens over there on Facebook Live. So if you get a chance, you can go back and watch what maybe you're not able to see now. Those of you that are just listening online. But Ronnie Rabenold on board here with us, and just talking about some mysterious and scandalous crimes from around the area, and interesting. And we touched a little bit about just knowledge on the Nathan Hutton massacre as well. But that's on Facebook Live. We are talking about these scandalous and mysterious true crime. So where do we go from here?
Yeah,
Do you have much? Do you
this
have
one,
much in
you know,
Palmerton at all that you know of? Anything in Palmerton?
Yeah, well, this kind of has some Palmerton ties to it. You know, the Chaputsky, Russell Chaputsky was born here, went to Palmerton High School, World War II veteran, Korean War veteran, and then ran for DA in '63 and lost to Cresties. And yeah, that's the next story I'd like to launch into, but I'd just like to just give you a little hint. There's also this other story, Big Martin Laskowski, just incredible, had national implications as well, as far as the death sentence goes and how he evaded the hangman, and pretty remarkable in that respect. And plus, he's a great grandfather of a guy we all know very well, which I'll leave him nameless too, because you just don't want to, you know, throw a good family name under the bus, to associate with some of these things. That's why I'm a little reticent to say some of these stories, you know, because they're kind of buried and people don't like to talk about them. I can remember being a kid, hey, Buzz, and then I remember being a kid and my grandmother getting interviewed by an author that was writing for the Mon Wire story, and I could just remember, you know, she was reticent to say anything, you know, because, you know, she knew those, you know, my grandmother grew up in Hackle-Barney, she was born in 1880s, but she wasn't around per se, but she knew the families that were still around that were affected by it. I remember her struggling. I can still sitting there, listening to her talk there. Not that she couldn't remember, she just didn't want to say.
So if you want to find out things that go on around the area, I mean, we're digging into the history.
Yeah.
You know, nothing else. Where do you go? I mean,
well, so what happened was,
it's not public record.
You know, it is. Yeah,
right.
Dad, you know, so you had this Bricker mob, the Bricker gang, and this guy was a hairdresser from Philly, and he comes up here, and somehow he gets connected to these two lawyers.
Imagine that.
And you know, both had political aspirations, and this young hairdresser from Philly, who was like I think it Departed, that Leo DiCaprio Boston movie with the forest, you know. So this guy's a hairdresser, and he's calling the shots, and he has all these burglaries lined up. It's a spree through Lehigh and Palmerton. Mrs. Chaputsky here in Palmerton was robbed. He targeted insurance agent. He targeted the Carbon County Courthouse. He was getting records. He was getting dirt. He was getting money. He was getting furs, jewelry, securities, expensive hair pieces. He's a hairdresser, and he knew which women had expensive hair pieces, and he'd target them.
Really?
And all the women that he targeted, as far as the robberies, were connected women, wives of the lawyers, wives of the insurance companies. So this story comes down through my family. My nephew Joel Finsel is married into this family, and the Seabolts. Okay. And I've heard this story growing up. So the part of the story that we've grown up that's fascinating is the part where the Kenny Seabolt dies, and they go to his funeral. It's December of 1940. Oh shoot! No, I'm getting my stories mixed up. 1965, and Bricker. Now, when I was growing up, the story was that Bricker himself was dressed as the woman, but there was also a woman involved that also entered the home. So as Mrs. Seabolt went, Anna Seabolt, it's the house right past Walmart. It's the first house, really like stately house. It's a little high brick home, not Walmart, past McDonald's. The first house on that side of McDonald's. You have that building.
On the left. Oh yeah.
Yep, on the left. Yeah. It's kind of like it's been sold, but no one's doing anything.
Right. The brick home.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That's where this took place.
Okay.
And so on a day of Kenny Seabolt's funeral, who was an insurance guy, who had securities, who had an expensive stamp collection, Anna Seabolt leaves. The Bricker mob waits for him. They come out in a similar car or something, as if she's coming back into the house. She forgot something, and they robbed during the funeral. And so the story I grew up with was that Bricker himself was dressed as the woman, but the more research I've done, I'm thinking it's this Shapiro woman.
Wow.
So anyway, so that's fascinating. So doing some digging, okay, so what's the axe to grind there? Is it just for profit? And so I did find an axe to grind there. And in 1957, there was this deal that Seabolt brokered between the Raricks and another man, and I don't want to say the name because I don't want to defame that family if I have it wrong. I just off my memory, I don't want to say the wrong family name. And some Summit Hill family. and they felt slighted. And so this was a spite job.
Oh.
And I think I found a lot of spite work here, and I think with Chaputsky losing the DA in '63, I think that's how he gets him involved. And he wants to be the king of Carbon County, this Bricker. And he wants to get the next DA on his side, in his pocket, and he wants to get the next judge in his pocket. The judge would be Albert Leonzi at Summit Hill.
Oh, okay.
So I think I rattled off a bunch of the burglaries. I won't go into more of them, but that's, you know, insurance, securities, checks, money, stamp collections, furs, jewelry, and then how to fence all this stuff. And so these are all legitimate families, and then so what happens is the noose is coming in. That now they're doing interstate fraud because one of the checks was from Baltimore. So now the FBI is involved. The FBI is closing in. They're all meeting in Summit Hill and saying, who do we need to bump off now? Who do we got to get rid of? Because they're going to start testifying against us. So I don't know if there's any break you need or anything, but I'll say. So one of the things that they gathered, just let me know, because that would have been a good time to stop. But anyway, so there's this Kornajeko guy that's in jail. Well, first of all, what I wanted to mention earlier before I got into this stuff was that Bricker was known for people just to die who were around him as the noose was coming in. Like, so the police were closing in on him earlier that summer. The guy he was with died, suicide apparently. That's what they said. Shot himself as the police were coming to round him up. Bricker escapes. So now the same thing's happening. The FBI, they know about the serve some warrants because they're all connected to the DA's office. Chaputsky was assistant DA at the time. Leonzi was an attorney, and so they were catching wind through the legal circles because no one suspected these two lawyers were involved. And so they're like, how can we slip? Because Kornajeko was in prison, they're afraid he's going to testify against them, spilling beans. They had a pill. They said it was going to work very effectively, very quickly. They were working on a plan to have to sneak it into him down in the Eastern State Penitentiary. Never got it to him. That night, January 31st of 60, I hope my years are right here, 66. This is the one my dad would always complain about. Like, how in the heck did this happen? How did they say this was a murder? That he was found at the foot of his bed, necktie around his neck, the famous necktie strangulations in Carbon County. There was a couple of them. There was some IDC stuff. Some guys were strangled with neckties and run off the road and stuff. That's a whole other story I have never gotten into. But a personal friend of mine's dad was killed during that time, and they always said it was the mafia bumping these guys off from IDC. But anyway, so Leonzi's found dead at the foot of his own bed with a necktie around his neck. And they said, and it took a year to determine whether it was homicide or suicide. And they said they finally ruled it a suicide. Happens that Bricker swore under oath, I was in the house that night. So was Chaputsky. So was Shapiro, and they were planning on who they were going to bump off, who would tell on them. Less than a month later, I think it was like February 24th or so. Less than a month later, Chaputsky is dead.
Oh, he's gone too.
He dies. He dies very quickly of a pancreatic infection. Like, he died within a day. Again. You could probably
such bad news.
Everybody around him died.
Yeah. So did the other guy die? Did he?
Kornajeko, I think, survived, as far as I can tell.
Okay.
But there was a.
So whatever happened to him?
Bricker.
Yeah.
So he does go to jail. He gets paroled in around 71.
Right.
First thing he does, I assume, is starts writing checks with Leonzi's widow. And it does seem that those two were intimate, maybe even before he went to jail.
No kidding.
Yeah, so it's a really, really messy.
Wow.
But I'll tell you, the pancreatic infection thing, I wouldn't have, knowing how all these people died so mysteriously around him, this Bricker, and knowing that they were trying to poison this guy in the state pen, I'm hoping.
Yeah.
I'm not the only one that put this together. I was hoping back then that somebody. Yeah. Because, there's a good bootleg story about
that's what
back in the day. Back in the day, all these people were making this bathtub gin stuff.
Sure.
And so the government, this is where some of the conspiracy theories started from. So the government was experimenting with modifying the different types of base alcohols that were available to, say, like, manufacturer's industry so that it couldn't be used to convert it into drinkable alcohol, ethyl and methyl alcohol. So they were experimenting, messing with the composition of it chemically. And there was a time in the 1930s during Prohibition when, so the shtick was, if I had a factory that used this type of alcohol that could be converted to drinkable alcohol, I would sell that then to these bootleggers to be made into true alcohol. And the government was experimenting with it, and people for a period of a couple months were getting this alcohol and they were getting poisoned from it, and because of the manipulation of it. And the last hours of your life, you just can't, it's uncontrollable laughter with that type of poisoning.
Oh, really?
And so when you listen to the conspiracy theories of today, a lot of people, legitimate historian type people, will point to episodes in our history when those sorts of things happened, where the government did do something that they were hoping to end nefarious activity and created damage in people's lives. So I just mention that now because that is a classic symptom of that type of alcohol poisoning. Is also a quick pancreatic death.
Isn't that something?
So if they were having drinks and gave him the wrong alcohol, and they probably never checked. He just had a couple of drinks, he went to bed, and he woke up dead.
He was a sly dude, that burger.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I like it. And there's a couple more things Ronnie's going to touch base on, and we'll do it. Like I said, those of you that are online, we're wide open on Facebook Live as well. Let's do some Hootie and the Blowfish, and I want to hold your hand, man. What's it all about, right?
Hey.
Just bringing some local flair to this local radio station, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so.
Yeah.
That is crazy stuff, man.
Yeah.
That's crazy stuff. Keith is over in the background, but that's goofy, man. How about that? Like, that's just wacky. Oh boy. Oh crap. I got all kinds. There's all. Look at that phone. Can you see it? Holy crap. Messages galore. Call soon. I got a bunch of people. Man, there's all kinds of people on board. People want me to follow up. We got somebody else that would like to advertise with the radio station. They want some information. They love this guest. So, Ronnie Rabenold on board with us. And where do you go? Take a leak?
No, he went to the bathroom.
Well, it's taking a leak. Hopefully. When did he go take a leak? Keith said he went to the bathroom. That's what I call it. Did he go to the latrine?
Yes.
All right.
The restroom.
The restroom is too politically correct. That's
No,
not,
I know.
only gay people use restrooms.
I'm sorry.
You know? I don't know. That's dumb. That probably didn't even come off right. They're the things I say at home, and Kate goes, "What does that even mean?" It's like, I don't know. Does everything? It does. Nowadays in this world, everything has to mean something. I'm the type of guy that when I say something, it doesn't have to mean anything.
Right. That's how it is with fifth graders. You don't have to really make much sense of that.
That's funny.
No, you have to be authentic with that.
That's funny.
I
So,
am a fifth grader.
what do we have here? We have about like 20 minutes or so, but coming up, but let's, we'll go on the radio side again too and talk about, I don't know, where you want to go. That gotta be hard though. Like I said, with some of the families still living, even though it's public record, that you don't want to, you know, talk about. But I wouldn't mind. I mean, I would actually probably thoroughly enjoy if, like, I turned out the way I am, even though I think I'm pretty like screwed up. I think I'm fucking psychotic to begin with. Anyway, I think it would be pretty neat going like, you know, your great-great-grandfather was like a serial killer, or he owned women and they danced, you know, or he had the first red light district, and I'm like, shit, that would be awesome. I think I'd like that. I would like it. Was there any red light districts where like scandalous affairs?
Well, yes. Dad always talked about the Maple Tree Inn.
Oh, and we owned that.
Yeah. What's that?
We owned that.
You own your family did.
My brother was born there.
Well, see, there you go. There you go.
Yeah, my mom and dad. My mom got. That's where my brother was conceived. My mom got nailed. My mom got nailed at the Maple Tree Inn. That's what happened. Probably in the kitchen or in the bar. She was the youngest bartender in Pennsylvania. My mom at the Maple Tree Inn.
What's your name?
No, that's my sister.
Your sister.
Marion.
Oh,
She was
right.
Marion Schrader. So she was adopted by Bill and Cora Schrader. Her dad was part of the Getz. I'll say the name because I don't give a shit.
Doc,
Her dad was the Getzes there in Jamestown, and she was given away when she was born.
Wow.
Because they had a lot of big families and then they couldn't afford it.
Same.
So
Yeah.
So my mom was walked down First Street there to where the Jamestown Hotel used to be. Here's a little fun knowledge. And her real dad gave my mom away.
Yeah.
Gave her, like he said, "Here, Billy, you son of a bitch, if you want her, you can have her." She was about 3 years old or so and gave her away.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Same with my grandfather was given away. He was my grandfather was given away to a one-armed Civil War veteran.
Oh.
And who became sheriff. I lived in the Simmons house there by Maple Tree. It was a Gumbert farm. It was Jonathan Gumbert, and
I love these.
He became sheriff of Carbon County. He lived at the jail, and he was short-handed, excuse the pun, and had my grandfather around to be the orderly at the jail. My grandfather was cleaning the jail cells in 1900.
Wow.
My grandfather theoretically may have been around the jail when some of the stories happened about him.
Wow.
So we're not on the
radio side, but we will be. We can bring that up again.
Yeah.
But speaking of the Maple Tree Inn, I know that used to be a spot because they had numbers on the doors and all on the second floor. Yeah.
Allegedly, they had these circuits of women that would go around. And they would stay at certain locations for 2-3 weeks, and then they would move.
Fantastic.
And then there was a White Owl Club down in Allentown.
Seriously, what would be wrong with that nowadays?
It's human trafficking, Doc.
Yeah, but if they signed off and they wanted to do it. People are looking for work every day. Maybe they'd want to do this kind of work. I could call it the Colossal Cat House.
Oh my God. I'm disavowing any of this conversation.
But I did hear, the Maple Tree Inn back in the day.
My dad said it was a shady place back in the day.
Yeah. But now, that was long after my family owned it because they had it as, my mom still has menus. Yeah. She saved from there. I should try to get you get you a picture of them where you can do lobster tail, a surf and turf,
for $1.50.
Like it's somewhere around I think you might be spot on.
Yeah.
That included coffee, dessert. For $1.
I have an old Legion menu. Similar price.
Isn't that crazy? But that now the Maple Tree Inn is the tennis club, right? Is the the name escapes me. What is it, Keith? You had it wrong.
Oh yeah, what you calling it?
Valley Royale.
Yeah,
Valley Royale.
Yeah, Jenny Everett.
Yep, Jenny Everett is Valley Royale. Yeah. So pretty crazy. That's neat though.
Yeah, smart.
I love the history because we're rich in history here. Our resort area, what we have here is pretty spectacular. So many things to do that are right here in our area and throughout the Poconos. We're pretty, I'm all about it, and I'm all about promoting our area, and even like with Ronnie, the history behind it. So I dig it. I totally dig it. So where do we want to go? Once we 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes.
I have many stories, but I have two I would like to get to, and let me just do the short one quick, so you have enough time for a second.
We'll do that coming up.
We're not on yet.
We have a bunch of people. Where was the Maple Tree Inn? The Maple Tree Inn was on 902, where the trucking outfit used to be, right where Radical Wine is, a little further up from Radical Wine. So
for the tennis courts. Yeah,
where
past
it
the
is.
Gumbert
And
Farm.
then, yeah, and the tennis courts are out there.
Wait, no, before the Gumbert Farm, before the yellow farmhouse of the old Gumbert house where Chuck.
Bob's on board. He goes, "This is very cool. Have Ron on more often."
I paid Bob to write that.
Oh, shout out to R2, best history teacher Lehighton has ever had.
Oh,
That's
come
come
on.
from Forrest. Boy, oh boy, you're
Who's
getting
that?
all kinds of accolades.
Who was that?
Forrest Schaefer.
Oh, Forrest.
And then some other lady said, "I agree. All three of my boys had him as a teacher, and they loved him."
Oh,
That's cool stuff.
yeah.
I can't find anybody to love me. I'm a goddamn person. I sit here and do this shit for 30-some years for you people, and I can't get one of you people to say we love you, Doc. So you know what? I don't even want to hear it. Don't send me one now just to like stroke my ass. I don't want it. You know, I'm better off saying, you know what, you're a dick, you suck. Send me that. I'm better with that. It's too funny. It is neat, and you guys know. With all the work that goes on behind the scenes here, Ronnie saw some things happen first hand here because he was here early, and you know, sometimes it just gets crazy. But you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way where I really would like to write my last chapter with this radio station and do what we can do with like a guest around Rabenold history with our businesses, do some local stuff and just make it fun. So we're trying our best to do that, but it's a daunting task. But now we got another set of hands like Keith on board with us.
Tech quiz.
A tech quiz, yeah. Tech quiz on the back end. I like
Don't
it.
say that too loud.
What's that?
Don't say that too loud.
Right? Steve, no doubt he's a great historian. Nice guy too.
Oh, wow.
Dude, you got all kinds of stuff going on here. I like it. All right, let's go back on the radio and on Facebook and see what else you have to talk about for us. I like it. So listen, tonight, guys, those of you on Facebook Live, come on down. We'll have a beverage or two with you. Covered Bridge Inn tonight. Happy hour starts at 5 o'clock. So from 5 until 8, we'll hang out down there and have some fun. Play some music and I don't know. It's a wing night tonight. Their wings are banging. Like they've done a nice job with a new menu at the Covered Bridge Inn. So come on down tonight. Little Bruce Springsteen music for you. On this Wednesday edition of the Endless Party Radio Show, and a studio guest who I ran into over at the Huffer Mill, another great place to eat. Ron and his wife. You were out. You're healthy. You ate an apple and everything.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You want to live forever or what?
Yeah.
All right. You want to
Live long enough.
You want to outlive the historians.
Yeah.
I want to go before you because this way then maybe I can make the history books. You can talk about
Oh,
wing
Doc,
costs.
come on. Yeah, we'll both live to 100 and so, I guess.
Oh, I don't want to. No, I don't want to live that long. I really don't. If I have to go back to eating baby food and everything else, I'm out. I'm taking myself right out of the loop, man. I'm out. Ron Rabenold on board here with us, and always a pleasure, though. You know, all the fun in this side, but we have a great area, and I'm all about our area. And we are in a resort vacation area. We have so much here, and I've seen a lot, and I'm very blessed with the 30+ years doing this business and being able to see different parts of the country, the islands. I mean, and we have it really special here, but we have strong history from the Molly Maguires. I mean, here from the coal mines to Bethlehem Steel, and the list goes on and on. Right here, not every area, Ronnie, and you know that,
Sure.
has what this is rich in history. And when I ran into Ronnie, he came up with a little bit of a tag with mysteries and scandalous crime that was on that has been going on around the area, and this goes back decades and decades and decades. So that's why we got Ronnie on board. Now you have another little story. What's going on?
A bunch, obviously, but
you do, I'm sure.
you know, and there, if you go back and you tie it all in, you know, and I hate to just dwell on the negative because we have a great place to live and play here. You know, who wants to live? Who wants to live anywhere else when you can play? You know, to me, I'm on the trail every day.
That's
you know,
awesome.
and being connected to nature, that's
awesome.
It's really important. But you know, the one story, here's another story I grew up listening to because the child of this quote-unquote murdered man. We don't know if the murderer got away with it or what happened. It's still a mystery. The man did get convicted, but they did say it was Fred Komatowski, and he was a railroad worker, and he also was a handyman in the mills. And long story short, you know, Pierce Rarick, he had Parkinson's, and there's a lot of more intrigue to it. I'll just tell the story real quick, because the other story is one I want to get into. But
And this story that you're talking about took place.
This one happened in 1940, and Pierce Rarick owned a knitting mill, and then him and his secretary got together and formed their own mill together and had a couple mills together, at least two. And so that maybe became the scandal because, you know, obviously it seemed like there was a love interest there, but he was an older man, but she was also involved with this Fred Komatowski, who was one of their maintenance guys. So, and they lived together for most of their adult life. So as Pierce Rarick was declining in health with his Parkinson's disease, that was what the prosecution tried to paint it as, that it was a love triangle, that Komatowski was trying to get rid of Pierce Rarick. He was tired. It was quoted in the trial that he was tired of playing second fiddle. So this crime, death, whatever you want to call it, happened would be Underwater Deep Run. It was one of the streams that fed into the Pohopoco, which would now be under the Beltsville Lake. So this crime would have happened underneath the lake. I'd say toward the bottom, toward the breast of the dam, near Busy Bee gas station was nearby. So you would have gone the old cement road, they call it. It's still there. When you go to Sawmill, and you go that way, which is now the breast of the dam. If you would go just a little bit farther in through the breast of the dam, you'd be at these two cottages that Pierce Rarick owned, the one bungalow, and Evelyn Chrisman owned the one next to it. She has an interesting life, and I really wasn't going to this far into this story, but I might have to tell this one instead of the other one I was going to tell. But so, long story short, blah blah blah. Yeah, sorry, but like they had an argument that night, according to this James Ogg, that was an assistant to Pierce Rarick. And again, I heard this story growing up because my mom was a traveling companion of Mildred Baderschneider. And she was a wonderful woman who lived on top of the old mill that Pierce Rarick first started. Her dad was Pierce Rarick. And wonderful woman. She reminded me of Katharine Hepburn. She had a little bit of a quiver in her voice when she talked. And her husband died young, and so my mom liked to travel, my dad didn't, so my mom traveled like all over the world with this woman.
Wow.
They went to many places, and actually all over the Northern Hemisphere and Southern Hemisphere. But yeah, so that's how I got to know this story from that side of the family. You know, she was kind of like orphaned when her dad died of Parkinson's in 1941, I think this happened, 41. And so anyway, Carl Niehoff is running for DA after this trial happens, after Komatowski beats it, and that was his tagline for the campaign was, if you want to get away with murder, come to Carbon County. That was his tagline for his campaign.
Really?
So, yeah.
For real?
Yes, that was his tagline. Now, I don't think it was in print, but that's what he'd go around and say. That's how he'd lead off. That's the red meat he'd throw to his voters.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like just to fire them up.
Yeah.
You know, and just to say the old regime needs to change. Like, I will bring justice to town.
Right.
So, yeah, so it's still debatable, and I'll just get to the punchline I want to get to, and I could go into more detail of the trial. So he ends up dead in the mill pond in front of the bungalow the next day, and Komatowski was the last one to see him. Komatowski was the guy that found him next day. The defense, the prosecutor, face down in the water.
Oh.
So the defense,
He drowned him, Keith.
Yeah.
That's what he did. He drowned
The defense.
Yeah. Poor guy's got Parkinson's, shaking like hell. He put his foot on his neck. He just drowned.
That's what they said, right? The defense is saying that he could walk that far. The prosecution said there was no way he could walk that far, and they actually bust the jury out there on buses and walked them around the property to show like this. So that both sides presented witnesses that said he could and couldn't do it. To walk the 30 paces. It's 30 paces from the front porch to this water. There's no way. He was an invalid. He had constant care. This Ogg guy had to carry him in and out of the car. So of course Ogg said there's no way he could do it. The family got up on the stand. No way he could do it. And then of course his old caretaker that hadn't seen him in 17 months said, yeah, he could do it. Yeah, maybe 17 months. My mom died of Parkinson's. It's not a fun disease to die from. So I can picture this suffering. And so, long story short, the irony, besides all the other salacious details of it, is that Pierce Rarick, you go Lower Cemetery at Lehighton. Pierce Rarick is near the road, like the middle road, like where the straight roads are. Find Pierce Rarick's grave right there, and you can walk 30 paces, and you're at Fred Komatowski's grave. They're buried, the two men are buried 30 paces apart in the cemetery. That's kind of just an ironic little
How the
detail.
heck does that happen?
Yeah.
That's weird.
That had to drive the family crazy.
Oh,
that man that they figured killed their. And I wonder if Fred tried to buy the closest plot he could. I don't know. Now Evelyn is buried up top. She's up near, closer to the where it's Kirby Road, where the master burial site is. She's up top there.
Okay.
So yeah, so Fred did not get buried with his longtime lover, living paramour, and etc.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. And even though they were like, well, I mean, there was a lot of homes and farmland right there where Brooksville Lake was.
And just
and that, what year was that again?
Right as the war was breaking out, 40, 41.
Wow.
If I could just throw in, and I have talked with the Komatowski descendants. I don't think he had any children, but I did talk to like a great niece of his, and she's out of the area. And that's where the family comes in, and she reads these details, and she's like, I really feel there's discrimination against my great uncle for this reason and that reason, and you can just feel the hurt, of her name getting dragged in like that. So it's really, I hate to tell these stories like this. I did get confronted with a guy that escaped the Carbon County prison. They do tell the story of the jail. That's in William O. Williams. It's documented. It's in Judge Lavelle's book. So he knocked on my classroom door one day after hours, got in before we had security. He said, "I hear you're telling my story. Your kid's in the classroom." He's like, he was mad at me. He's like, "Where did you get my story?" And he was mad, not because it was a defamation of him, but that he wanted to sell the rights to make a movie to his story. And it's a pretty good story. I could probably tell in a couple minutes, but I did want to tell the Big Martin story.
All right,
but I don't have time.
Listen, we'll do this Big Martin story coming up in just a bit. So sometimes stick around. Those of you that are online, welcome aboard. Those of you that are on Facebook Live, stay there. Right, we'll be back, everybody. That's funny.
Craig Komatowski.
So the guy came into your classroom.
Yeah, it was William O. Williams. Wow, his initials were.
Wow.
Might have been back. No, it was wait. You were gone, yeah, because I was a high school teacher when you were in school.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Komatowski though, in his defense, and if I had a quick 30 seconds to clean his name a little bit, because maybe he was innocent, and I think he could have been, probably was innocent. Legally, he was declared innocent then. They did a 2-day marathon, third-degree interrogation of him, including broken ribs and punches to the face. Yeah, like they beat the pulp out of him, and they did it in 2-hour shifts. They had different guys come in every 2 hours just to harass him.
Wow.
And he did not know what he was signing. That was what his acquittal said. He did not know.
What was he accused of?
Of carrying him to the thing and drowning him on purpose.
Okay, yeah.
To get him out of the way.
Wow.
So yeah, the acquittal judge said, and I'm going to repeat this again for the other audience too, so sorry Facebook people, you're listening to both or whatever, you're going to hear this twice, but like, yeah, I feel like there's good, I've heard a good podcast or two from Malcolm Gladwell about what our memory does and what we're willing to do under duress. And signing a confession like that is not unheard of in that situation. Not, because that's just, it's a great tactic. I mean, he had all the circumstantial evidence, there was no visual, there was no, what's that called, no eyewitness evidence at all in that case. And he signed, you can hear that, you're groggy, you're getting beat up, and there you are, and they're reading pieces of it to you that are absolutely true. were you not there the night before? Yes, I was. I argued with Og. Yes, yes, you were. You said you had beers at the Weissport house. Yes, I did. And like, they're just rattling off all the things you did, and everything I just said was true stuff. And then you said you came back to feed the squirrels. Right, yes, I did. And then you saw Pierce Rarick sitting on the porch. Yes, I did. And like, so you could just hear them conveniently saying all the easy stuff to agree to, and say, and then you threw in the water, you know, and then sign the paper. I will let you go if you sign the paper. Come on, you went to feed the squirrels. You said you went to feed the squirrels. You just hear them harping on the easy stuff, and you're groggy, and you admit to the whole thing. Like, you just want it over. You'll admit to anything. They say you'll admit to anything under that kind of pressure. According to the one Malcolm Gladwell podcast I listened to. That's my only authority in saying that.
Interesting stuff, man. History. And you mentioned the Weissport house. So is that the
Yeah.
Weissport house?
Yeah, Ignaz Deutsch was his name, or what was his name? Some German name.
Wow.
Owned it at the time. Good German name. Ignaz.
Interesting, interesting stuff, man.
Yeah, Lakes Diamond.
Lakes Diamond?
Famous bootlegger in the 30s. He may have stopped Willie Heighton. There's only one piece of evidence I have for that came from Corky Cordilla.
Oh, yeah.
Back to Corky Cordilla story, but
With a moonshiner coming.
yeah.
Do we make a lot of moonshine around here?
No, just well, yes, actually, yeah. You know, and there's another good name in Pomeranian. That I don't want to say it. They actually grew up in the IDC area there, in the Maple Tree Country Club area. I'm not going to say their name because I would like to talk to them first, because they may not be in their family. And then they had Palmerin roots as well, and they were busted in around 35 for running a still in Mahoney Valley. They were near Heinzman's there.
Really? Right by?
Yeah, probably.
Well, yeah, because there's water back. Yeah, there's water back.
You need cold water. Yeah, you need the cold water to condense it. That's always a key for a still.
So that was like the only still that we know of, or?
Oh, there's plenty. Oh my God, the mountain was filled with them.
No kidding.
Oh, because that's where they rendered down tea-berry to make wintergreen oil, and they rendered down birch limbs to make birch extract. To make birch beer.
We were talking about tea-berry, the flavored tea-berry. Tea-berry, they say, is the #1 ice cream flavor in Pennsylvania, and I don't believe it.
It's probably the one we were most known for because no one ever hears it outside of this area.
Really?
I would say. It's probably very unique. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So we were talking about, Kate and I were talking about that today. And about tea-berry ice cream. This is the conversations we have at home. That's kind of like bizarre, isn't it?
That's good. People need to talk about stuff.
It's fun. But anyway, I like this mysterious and scandalous crime with Ron Rabenold, a history teacher at Lee Heighton, but some fun stories. But let's do this big Martin story and bring it all full circle. But,
yeah. If I could just throw in about Fred, you know, if you read, I have it. You can Google search it on my blog, Pierce Rarick, Fred Komatowski. If you read, I read the entire transcript of the trial years ago. I don't watch TV. I have no life. That's the stuff I do. But like,
that's all right.
Yeah, and so he was under horrendous conditions at the interrogation, and you'll sign anything. You know, he was beaten. It was more than 24 hours, 2-hour shifts by different detectives, and you agreed to this. You know, you were out to feed the squirrels. You were the last one to see him. You were the first one to see him. You're the one that discovered his body. And like, you read off all that information of the truth.
You do that.
And they made him sign it just to get it over with.
Yeah, no, I get it. You know.
So that's that's what the judge said. The judge that declared it a mistrial said this was a travesty of justice. He shouldn't have been treated this way. That this was a forced confession. So whether, you know, he had to live the rest of his life if he was innocent, you know, and here we are still talking about him, and he could have been just total victim.
Wow.
Of the circumstance.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like the stories of our area, and the history runs deep. Plus, you know what? Even though we touched base on this and this other story coming up, but there's a lot of great things too, and some great history in this area, which is unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know, from some very We should have that on. We should do that.
We're the hand that rocked the cradle of
that's so many
of the Industrial Revolution.
Oh
Absolutely.
my gosh, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do something.
Yeah.
The night they drove old Dixie down, little Levon Helms in the band for you. Ron Rabenold on board. We're talking about it all and touching base on mysterious and scandalous true crime stories. And we want to bring it full circle. But I'll tell you, you know, history teacher again with Ron. We had a bunch of people that are on board. Really, just a neat twist to do some local history for our area, which I'm all about, and all about our area and our resort area and the Poconos, and to bring a little history to it. Now, with what you're talking about, you have a blog. Where can people get some information, even on you, you know, or to find some of these things you're talking about? What's going on?
My blog, I developed it 12 years ago, Cultured Carbon County, back when I thought I had to have a flashy, ringy name to it, a little alliteration, but so that's the only reason.
Okay.
But Cultured Carbon County, all one word, at blogspot.com.
Blogspot.
But yeah, just type in anything that interests you in Carbon County history. If you talk Asa Packer, if you're talking, you know, Josiah White, you know, Whitehaven and the canal, and you know, the Non-Hunt Massacre, and just throw my name with it, you'll find my site.
Yeah,
So I've written over 150 some stories on my blog.
Yeah, it's crazy. I love it. You know, Keith, behind the scenes, like, it's just neat to get some of this, to get some of the knowledge in the story. I can say, not on the scandalous side, well, not that I know of. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I wish my great grandfather was known for something like, you know, I don't know, even like a cat house. It's almost kind of like bumming me out that they're not, you know, in the scandalous side of things. But we have a pretty rich history, you know, with my family and the railroaders, you know, and the Maple Tree Inn, and then from there, where the Mahoney Convalescent Home is, that was a resort, and my grandparents owned that, you know, like there was.
Oh, you can see it. That old bungalow was there. Yeah.
There was boating. There was multiple houses,
Yeah.
and what's really interesting is, who lived in that home, not built, but who lived in that home which was funny when Kate and I got together with the Hufford Mill, but the Huffords owned that property for a long time, and that was kind of like their getaway home, you know. So it was ironic when Kate and I got together. They have the Hufford Mill, renamed the Hufford Mill. It's like, well, we have a little history with the Huffords at the house in Mohawk Valley. So it's very weird how things sometimes run.
Sure. Well, it's small town.
It's a small town, but how they're connected, how these people, like you said, even were the start of the Industrial Revolution, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we can get more into that, and that would be a really cool. That would really be a cool show if you want to do something.
I have a bunch on that. Sure.
That would be really neat. But let's bring it full circle with scandalous and mysterious.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Well, everybody in this room and a lot of people know the great grandson of this Big Martin guy, and I'm gonna just when I first wanted to write a book, this was my book. This was going to be a historical fiction novel, and our common friend, and I just don't want to say the name. He told me the story, and I connected the dots. They never really. I don't think the family knew the story. I'm pretty sure about that, and. Yes, I'm right. They didn't know the story till I unearthed it, and they had heard wisps, and they couldn't understand why my buddy's grandmother her and her mother had to come in from Grass Valley, California, or Nevada, or on the borderline there. Why they had to survive out there themselves? How did they get out there? You know, they're immigrants from Biksard, Slovakia, which is like a community today. It's like Perryville. It's a one-street town. I've seen pictures of it. I'm friends with a tour guide there online. We communicate about what goes on in Biksard, and I've told him about all the immigrants that came to Lansford from Biksard. We can trace, and John Orslok in Lansford can trace about 1,500 to probably 3,000 people over a 40-year period that emigrated from that one village and populated the west end of Lansford. So it was a mini Biksard. And so this Big Martin was from Biksard. All the women in the family were named Elizabeth. and she was a Pavlik, and she was married to a Pavlik, and that's a whole other part of the story. But coal miners, and long story short, these people, Pixar, they came back and forth a lot. And you know, all the previous immigration in our country's history, it was a one-way thing. But when the Eastern Europeans came, and a lot of Eastern Europeans came here to populate Palmerton at the time, when that industry was hungry for workers, you know, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, that's why you have the Orthodox churches here.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, or have, you know, the congregation has gone, because that was that religion of that area. Mm-hmm. And so I know a lot of people here in town will now go up to, you know, the Lansford Orthodox churches that are up there, because that's where Pixar, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, long story short about, I don't think I have much time to tell this whole story, but how we discovered this connection was, he said how his grandmother came in, and she proved herself worthy in this boarding house. So she came, had no money. Their father disappeared because their father was Big Martin. And he escaped. He murdered a boarding house woman in Summit Hill. There was one witness, a 10-year-old boy, that had to testify against him. He was a bigger-than-life guy. He was gregarious, knew many languages, was very, whatever you want to call him. He gets accused of murdering the boarding house boy, and probably did, because his wife had gone back to Bixart. He was living in this boarding house as a coal miner in Lansford, and escapes Carbon County Prison by getting the warden's wife, because the sheriff's family lived there, and they basically were the caretakers, like my grandfather was. I was telling earlier in the other segment. And long story short, there he gets her, he escapes, he goes out west, lives out there for a long time. He's probably he gets the wife to come back out. She was back in Bixart. She comes back for the trial. He escapes. They escape out west. He's living in a mining town in Minnesota the first time. The wife is probably writing letters home to her sister. The sister writes letters to the sheriff and says, this is where they are. He's not treating her nicely. Go get him. Go arrest him. And he gets arrested, gets brought back, escapes again. A couple years later, now he's out further west, probably Utah, Nevada, California area. He was moving around. We're getting reports from Sheriff Noonan in Utah that we think we saw him. You know, this is 1909. This is 1910. This is, and sheriffs out there like contacting our sheriff. Hey, we think we might have this guy you're looking for. You know, and they were getting these. He was almost like a ghost. He was showing up in so many different places. So we don't know which, but they did find him twice. The second time they found him, he was buying gifts because he knew the noose was coming in on him somehow, and he was buying gifts for his kids to bring back home when they caught him. He was like, I want to make sure I got these gifts before you guys arrested me. You know, and he was just that kind of guy. And when he came back, and I'm missing huge chunks of the fascinating parts of the story just to tell it quickly. I want to finish that one thread I opened, I'm sorry. My buddy's grandmother, they knew she was frugal. They knew she would be a good cleaner at the boarding house. After the second time, they took their father, extradited her father back home, and letting them without an income out west, with no family out there. And so they had to get jobs and had to make money, these two women in these boarding houses, to pay to come back, because the law wasn't going to bring them back. So she went into the boarding house, and the guy said, okay, let's see how you clean. She picks up the broom, and she does 3 strokes, or 4 or 5 strokes one way, turns the broom handle in her hand, and does 4 or 5 strokes that same way, to show that that's the way you keep a broom from wearing unevenly. You prevent it from wearing unevenly. So the real frugal people that know how to clean back in those days would turn the broom in their hands so that it would wear evenly. And so that's why she was hired. That's the family story. But they never knew why or how they got out there, and why they were destitute, and why they were out there without their father. And they could never figure that part of the story out. It's because he was wanted for murder. The best, most salacious part of the story, besides the crime and everything he did, and how he died, and in the end, was he was convicted to be hanged by the neck until dead. In these, he committed the first crime in 2003, and I'm going to say 1917. Yeah, so we're talking a 14-year period here when it transpired, until they finally got him for the last time, and he promised, I'm not gonna run away this time. I promise. I don't care if you let the door open to the jail. I'm not running away this time. I'm going to face what I have to face, he said. even though he denied ever doing it. And the guys had to spend 4 days, local sheriff and a local lawyer, no Stein, a relation of mine, they went out west on a train. 4 days, they said they hardly slept, played cards, and he said this Big Martin just entertained them with stories the entire time. He was just a storyteller too. So, long story short, during the time he was gone, Pennsylvania and all states, Pennsylvania was the last state to have anyone with the crime of the punishment of hanging by the neck till you're dead. So it was outlawed. So they would have to resentence him and open up the trial again, I guess. And they didn't want to take that chance or whatever. And then, in the meantime, while they're debating because he can't be hanged and now we're using electric chair, state of Pennsylvania legislature was also considering eliminating capital punishment altogether. It was inhumane. And the governor at the time said, I don't want to take a chance if this becomes illegal, and commuted his sentence to life in prison. So that's how he escaped death penalty, by escaping twice. He otherwise would have been put to death. It was all the correct timing.
Wow.
Ends up in Eastern State Penn, his health goes bad. And they said, hey, we don't want to pay for his medical expenses, let's let him go. And he died a free man, could have died a free man. Then he attacked a neighbor in Coaldale. Young wife, attacks her, probably tried to have his way with her. And while the husband was gone, tried to break through the wall of their double house. And gets arrested again. And by this time, the rest of the family's done with him. They were supporting him. They actually moved to Eastern State Penn area, and that's a whole part of the family story, and I connected that to this family. There's so much to this story that I haven't hit, but that's the quickest I could tell it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is that on your blog?
It is not. Okay. That's going to be a book if I ever write one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
that's cool.
That won't get on.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's more than that.
Yeah, we have the edited versions, but just some things that started here and spanned the country with some of these.
What about the country? What's that? Yeah.
Spanned the country.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it happened here and it spanned the entire country.
Yeah. And international, because it was she was back in Bixar, Yugoslavia when all happened.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And she went back and forth several times, and he may have gone back and forth too as well. We don't know.
Wow. Crazy stuff. Ronnie, so again, people can find you online with your blog post, Ron Rabenold, and put in anything, Nathan Hutton, anything around Carbon County, history, tag your name on it, it'll come up.
They'll find it.
We'll have to do, I would like to do one. I would love to lay out the groundwork for one, maybe towards the end of summer, do something for our entire area where we were with the mills. What they did when they changed up the mills to, I know this, to get uniforms and long underwear and things like that to keep our troops warm from this area. The Industrial Revolution, that we were the backbone of it right here.
Absolutely.
You know, from here to the Lehigh Valley and into Bethlehem Steel. Just a really cool local history on that. We should try to look at that because I'd love it.
Yeah.
I would love it. Listen, those of you that are hanging out here with us, stick around. Let's do some music here for you. Some Head East. I saw that come up by request. Hope you enjoyed a little bit of history. Ronnie Rabenold coming in, just talking about some things from around the area, man. I don't know. Good stuff, man.
All right. Good.
Supporting local, supporting each other, right? We'll be back. Stick around. I love it, man. I love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Those of you on Facebook Live, thank you. Keith, thanks for all that. We'll go over that. Those of you that are hanging out here with us, come on over to the online side. Expect more of this on the local side. And we're here all about supporting local and, like I said, supporting each other. So, love you guys. Thanks, Ronnie, for being a very colorful guest and always fun, man. We'll see you guys soon. See you later.
Thanks. Thank you, Doc.